Hey gang, Uncle Todd and Sonny here, and we are looking at the latest episode of Star Trek, the one we've all been waiting for this season, since it was the one they used to promote it for before it premiered. This is, of course, the Vulcan episode. Now we open with the Enterprise heading to this known pleasure planet. A vacation spot, as it were, for everybody to get a 3-day shore leave. Well, almost everyone. Una's not going down because, well, there's this person that lives in the area, and, well, they really don't want to start up with them again. And La'an is having her troubles because she and Spock, of course, are kind of being intimate, and, well, it's getting kind of weird. Also, Captain Patel is on board, and she is preparing to be interviewed by the Chief Justice of their Judicial Committee to see about going back into the law, which is what she did before she became a starship captain, and she feels she's better suited there than on a ship because of all the stuff that's happened. So Pike's preparing a dinner for them. Now, they then get called to this planet. It was Tazaria. And it turns out that technologically they're not advanced enough to have been part of the Federation, but the Vulcans had visited them before, and since they weren't part of the Federation, this is before Federation, they gave them some equipment and machines and stuff so that they could have a self-sustaining energy supply. And now it's going bad, so it's got to be fixed. But they will only allow Vulcans to be on board. They don't want any Federation people, just Vulcans. So remember last season when Spock got changed into a human? Well, they still had the formula for that, so Pike, Chapel, Uhura, La'an, and Pela are going to be injected. And all but Pela changed to Vulcans. Pela, as she puts it, I had the same problem with LSD back in the 60s, and the 80s, and the 90s, and last month. Gotta love cocaine. So they go down, fix it immediately. Come back up, and the antidote doesn't work. Well, they're going to have to combine it again, and taking in other factors. And which Chapel can do now that she's a Vulcan. She's just out all that science stuff. And they decide they'll stay aboard ship, as going down the planet might be a little goofy. And it's a good thing, because as Spock mentions, they don't really seem like Vulcans to him. Having grown up with Vulcans his whole life, yeah, he would notice. But also, like a lot of Vulcans, which we've seen before, they have a certain prejudice against Spock for his half-human lineage. And as Spock puts it, all Vulcans have emotions. They're actually some of the most intense emotions of any species in the galaxy. If not for our conversion to logic, we would have destroyed ourselves. Think he's making a pointed comment about the world today? I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyway, things start to get goofy. Pike starts instigating a new duty roster. Basically, shifts will now be 42 minutes. More efficient that way. And Uhura meeting Beto, because they were going to have a 3-day weekend together, mind melds with him and gets him to be a little more Vulcan in his outlook. Hmm. Now, Kirk shows up, his ship is there too, and he's hoping to reconnect with La'an. Maybe not romantically, but, they shared a adventure together, and he's got some free time, and, well, since she's not available, he'll hang out with Scotty, after all. Scotty saved his bacon a couple episodes ago. So, La'an, meanwhile, was trying to upgrade all defenses and weaponry on the ship. She is getting fanatical about it. And Chapel is doing all kinds of new experiments on different things. That's all she wants to do. She doesn't even want to sleep. She breaks up with Dr. Colby. The man she loved. The man she lost in the original series due to injuries and robotic replacement. Anyways. Now, when they finally get the antidote configured correctly, they all four decide not to take it. They find it's much more logical and efficient to stay as Vulcans. Spock can't fault them on that. Any Vulcan would think being Vulcan is best. But they aren't truly Vulcan. They are human deep down, which is a problem. So they're going to have to get in there and talk to them through their chakras. I can't quite remember what the phrase was, but Spock doesn't have a lot of experience there. Una does know someone, but she doesn't really want to call on him. But this is an emergency. So she calls him, and he comes aboard the Enterprise, and she warns Spock, don't mind the way I'm going to act. It's okay. And the person they're meeting is a Vulcan named Doug, played by Patton Oswalt.
And there was much rejoicing.
He's named Doug because his parents had a real interest in Earth, its culture, its inhabitants, and they've passed that on to him. And as soon as he and Una meet up, she gets giggly, and they start mooning over each other. Until finally, at one point she tells Doug that she and Spock are married and they have kids, so they can't really continue with any of their past relationships. They had a thing where they would be together, it'd be get intense, it would get too intense, they get too distracted from other things, and they'd break up, only to come back together again, over and over and over. One of those kind of relationships. They can't live with each other, but they can't live without each other. Anyway, once she goes off, so Spock can talk to him, and they can actually get down to things. Doug is amazed that Spock can lie, but then he is half human, and Doug finds that infinitely fascinating, that he could, despite all his Vulcan training, still manage to do that. And so they make a deal. Doug will help them with the chakras, and Spock will tell him everything he's experienced among the humans and their culture. Okay, sounds like a good deal. Well, this has been happening. Kirk and Scotty have found out that the reason La'an is updating all of the weapons and defenses is she's planning to start a triple war between the Klingons, the Gorn, and the Romulans, so that the Federation can then take over. It's the only logical solution to these problems. So after she beats the crap out of Kirk, who tries to stop her, Scotty tricks her into electrocuting herself, which knocks her out. And with Doug's tutelage, well, you're going to knock everything over, aren't you? With Doug's tutelage, they manage to get Chapel, Uhura, and Pike to agree to go back to being human. La'an fights it. So Spock has to go deeper into her chakra. And they discover, due to her ancestry being Khan, she's built up a resistance to these things, and there's a lot of anger and stuff in her system, especially at the hands she suffered from the Romulans and others. And she and Spock get into a huge battle between Vulcan martial arts and whatever it is La'an's race practices. And this eventually, he is in a mood. Eventually, it turns into a tango, at which point, after a few twists and turns, La'an agrees to be changed back. So, before this happened, I forgot. The big meeting that Patel had with the Vulcan judge. Well, Pike starts to list everything from a logical standpoint that makes her not fit. And Patel explodes on them. She berates Pike for his pompous attitude about her faults, and berates the judge for his basic prejudices against any defendant that's not a Vulcan. And then tells them both to leave. And so they pick up their Vulcan dishes and leave. Now, Pike is doing his best to make things up to Patel, but she's not letting him off the hook so easy. Unlike with Uhura and Beto, who they come to a better understanding, she has problems communicating with people. No problem at her board, but when it's one-to-one on a personal basis, But they do have 5 hours of shore leave left, so they head down to the planet and decide to just wing it. And Patel gets called by the judge. It seems he's retiring. All right, that's enough. Seems he's retiring at the end of the year, and they're going to need a replacement as the chief judge, and he wants her to take that position. Why her? Glad you asked. Her explosion at them showed him how much she really cares about justice and fairness, and he feels that those are qualities that are needed on the bench. Whew. Okay. And we end with Una and La'an talking. And Una's wearing a black miniskirt and is putting on lipstick. Wonder why that is. And well, La'an talks about her problems with being in a relationship with Spock. And La'an tells her all about the history between her and Doug, and all about how they get together. It's very intense, and then they break up. And the interesting fact is, for both Doug and Una, this only happens to them with each other. Doug's not like that with any other woman of any species, and Una's not like that with any other man of any other species. Just these two, they just have this intense attraction to each other. At which point we see Doug showing up with a bouquet of roses, and she tells La'an, don't wait up.
Sex.
And that is where we end. Oh, no, wait a minute. We end with Scotty and Kirk finally getting that drink they were trying to get at the beginning before La'an pulled them into being her helpers. And clicking glasses and admitting, they make a pretty good team. Yeah, another fun episode. I loved the fact that Pike's hair is even bigger when he's a Vulcan. It's for anyone of my generation, probably. The minute we saw him, we all went, Billy Idol! So go look up pictures of Billy Idol and his hair he had back in the days of the 80s when he was doing White Wedding and Rebel Yell. And you'll see what I mean. And I just love, and I love the fact that although they're Vulcan-esque, they are not acting like true Vulcans. Kirk mentions it to Scotty. La'an doesn't seem to be like any Vulcan he's ever encountered, and his CO was a Vulcan, so he's got a lot of time with Vulcans. Spock, of course. A lot of people who know Vulcans, like, these are not like any Vulcans we've ever encountered. What is up with them? They become very obsessed on one thing. And although their logic, it's logic that's colored by their internal memories and things. Hence, Leanne wanting to update all the weaponry and start a war to clear everything out, and Pike's obsessiveness over cleanliness and as a Vulcan, in cooking and all that. And a friend made an interesting comment about the whole thing, because in the show, this is the second time they mentioned that humans have a smell that's detected by Vulcans. It's not unpleasant, but it is a little intense. Humans don't notice it, but Vulcans' olfactory senses are more highly attuned. And a friend made a comment that this probably explains the whole thing between Leanne and Doug. Her scent turns him on, and hers does him, because remember, she's enhanced, so she probably has heightened senses too, and this is what bonds them. I'd never thought of that, but it is an interesting side comment to make. And this also is an explanation of people that have gone online and said that this show doesn't understand Vulcans, because they mentioned throughout the episode these don't act like Vulcans because they're not true Vulcans. And I get irritated when people do this, because pay attention. It was mentioned right there. Anyway, another great episode. Please hit like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.